You're listening to the all-new CultureCast, Chicagoland's finest podcast.
Welcome to the newest edition of the all-new CultureCast. We are your culturific hosts tonight, the Gorehound and...
Nick!
Hey Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, because we are podcasting tonight.
Yay! Actually, that's not entirely true. I mean, we are podcasting, but I am a little tired this week. As I mentioned to you, and I'm going to brag about this tonight on our preamble here. After being convinced by the fiance, I sucked it up and I decided to buy the Ghostbuster Firehouse Lego set.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad I got, but I'm also having slight buyer's remorse in that.
Yeah, that must have cost a few dollars, huh?
It was pricey.
Yeah.
We did get our tax refunds back, and even though most of our refund is going to go towards the our honeymoon and everything, it was a high price tag, and I mean it's worth the money. Because if you look at a price per piece, it's like 6 cents per piece, and there are close to 4,500 pieces in the set.
Yeah.
But it's quite large, and it was a pretty penny. It's been fun putting it together, but I've been working on this a little bit each night this week, and with that, by a little bit I mean at least 2-3 hours each night. Because when you start putting together a Lego set, you just get absorbed in doing it, and the next thing you know, 7 hours have passed, and you're like, what happened?
Are the directions good?
The directions are fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to be working on that. I'm only about midway through, and I've probably put in about 10 hours on this thing so far. So,
well, I'll be looking forward to seeing the final product.
Oh, I'm looking forward to showing it off, because this thing, I guess I was doing some research on it. It's apparently the third largest Lego set that they've ever made.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking up this image right now, the cover. And wow. Oh my gosh.
It's pretty intense. And it opens up, and you put together all the inside stuff. You have the kitchen. There's food products in the refrigerator. That's how detailed this thing is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Did you get the little green guy too?
Slimer. He's a minifigure. Yeah. I haven't gotten to him yet. He's in one of the later bags, but he's definitely one of the minifigures.
That's awesome.
That's worth the price of admission right there, Slimer. I'll be happy when it's all done, but I'm enjoying the ride as I go around, as I go along here.
Cool.
So, and I already own the Ghostbuster Lego car, so clearly I needed the house. I mean, it'd be stupid for me not to get it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling myself. But that's what's going on in my life. What about you? How are things with you?
It has been a very good week, despite this weather. The weather's bringing it down.
The weather is insane.
I mean, I hate talking about the weather, but it's just bringing me down this week, and it's been an especially good week because I actually bought a new car this week.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you, and it's been very intense, and I'm done making any decisions this week. I'm exhausted from decision making right now.
I bet.
But yeah, it's been a very good week. I'm trying to knock out 3 of my goals, and I've already knocked out 2 of them. The first one was to reorganize the file cabinet, because I was throwing out paycheck stubs from my first internships.
Oh wow!
And so I just purged it all, organized it all, got the car, and I'm trying to lose 2 pounds by the end of the week.
Okay.
I'm fluctuating between a pound and a half, a pound and a half and a pound, and I just cannot hit it. So I've been trying real hard this week, and I'm going to do my final weigh-in on Saturday and be come on. So.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, but besides that, I really haven't been doing anything. Work's been intense this week, so I haven't really sat down to watch any TV.
What kind of...
Oh, wait. I did watch... since I know nobody is listening to this, and I'm kind of embarrassed about it, I watched WrestleMania.
Oh, You and Zach will get along just fine.
Really, only for the sake that it is the biggest wrestling event of the year.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes I'll watch it if it's on, or like read a news article about this that's happening. But
It's like the World Series of wrestling.
right, and since I knew it was actually like a cultural phenomenon, and who better to talk about it than the guy who watched it all his life? Um, so I watched it, and it wasn't very good.
That's what I've heard. Were you a fan of the whole Roman Reigns, I guess? That was a big
No,
controversy.
no, I'm not a fan of him, and I like that he's the cousin of The Rock, but he doesn't have any potential. He's just this pretty boy who doesn't really have anything special about him besides this kick-ass tattoo. So, but yeah, largely the matches were not very good. There was one that I liked, but the rest of it is just like, I don't know. There's a lot of talent in this organization, and they just spoil it on soap opera dramatics. And it's a shame because,
You want to see the wrestling.
yeah, I want to see action like ECW where people are just like doing all these crazy stuff. But no, it's just like resorts to just drama. So,
I never got into the wrestling. I never understood the appeal, but that's just me.
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed about it because I don't know, I don't want to like it, but I do.
No, I
So,
understand. That's like my addiction with superheroes. It's like, why? But
yeah. So,
so what? I mean to ask you. So maybe we can get an endorsement deal going on here. What kind of car did you get?
the Hyundai Elantra.
Okay.
So I am super happy about it. Um,
Is it a gas guzzling SUV?
no, it is not. It is just a typical sedan. We are a few years away from requiring a family style vehicle.
Mm.
So stuck with a black sedan. This was the first time that I got to pick out the color of my car because in every other car I've had hand-me-downs from my parents. Thankfully, I received them. But yeah, this was the first time I got to pick it out. It's not really a new factor that I really care about. Um, it's the ability to listen to music more freely. That's what I like most because I could just like put a USB drive in filled with like 8 gigs of songs, and I just have my ad-free Pandora.
Congratulations on the new car.
Thank you, thank
Did
you.
you? I'm sorry. Did you say what color it was?
Black.
Black.
Yeah, very happy with that. So this week we are
Yes.
talking about it's a weird term that we haven't really nailed down a title,
Yes.
but it's what we refer to as multiple story in movies, multiple storylines that converge into a single connection or relationship.
Yes, I've seen multiple ways to refer to these types of films. Some people call them composite films. Other people call it hyperlink cinema.
Hmm.
I've read the definitions on both of these, at least according to Wikipedia and some other outside sources. To me, they sound like the exact same thing, but
Hmm.
people insist they're different. But as far as I'm concerned, they're the exact same thing. So for me, I'm going to refer to it as composite and hyperlink interchangeably.
Yeah,
But
I do find that hyperlink cinema sounds like super sophisticated.
it sounds a little snobbish, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
It
does.
sounds a little snobbish. But the type of movies that we're talking about, as the Gorehound mentioned, they have multiple plot lines, and typically these films will intersect. The plot lines in them will intersect with one another. Other times they don't. It's a fairly popular way to tell a movie, and they've been growing in various forms. Like every year, you have at least one or two of these films that come out,
Hmm.
and sometimes they're very successful. Other times they're awful, and it just sort of varies depending on it. A lot of romantic comedies within the last 10 years have been doing these types of movies,
Hmm.
and they
And
continue to
holiday
be.
movies.
And holiday movies. Well, it seems like the holiday and the romantic comedy go hand in hand
Yeah.
with this sort of thing. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But
Yeah, I saw Hyperlink Cinema, but I kind of thought interconnected movies were the best term because it's kind of like they are making connections between themselves.
right.
Because I found that when I was thinking of what an interconnected movie was multiple storylines that have a single point of intersection.
Mm.
Whereas I don't think that all of these typical movies like Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve actually did converge all into pretty much the same room.
They're just parallel stories all taking place on the same holiday.
Right, and some of them will intersect like perfectly, while others will never connect with those other intersections. So thinking of them as connecting into a single point isn't really accurate. It's having like a shared motive or theme.
Yeah, usually, yeah, exactly. There tends to be a similar theme involved. Some of these characters might intersect and meet one another, but typically they won't have an impact on the other storyline. I think it's, before we go further, I want to discuss some examples of this kind of type of film, but let's get some background, what kind of led to the creation of this episode. There's a little history here, so a little fun behind the scenes moment.
Yeah, let's hear it.
A couple of weeks ago, the Gorehound and I recorded a podcast for the
Right.
for the 1998 movie Playing by Heart, starring Gillian Anderson, Angelina Jolie, Jon Stewart, Sean Connery, and a bunch of other people. Yeah.
Oh my god.
When we were doing our X-File theme month, we were going to do a Gillian Anderson movie, and we decided to do this one because, A, it stars Gillian Anderson, and Gillian Anderson, shockingly, is not in a lot of, at least from my opinion, not in a lot of mainstream films the way David Duchovny is. But it was also one of the few films we were able to find actually on Netflix and watch. So
Yeah, and it was around Valentine's Day too.
and it was around Valentine's Day, so we were also going to tie it into a Valentine's Day themed episode. So we had a lot of things going, and we recorded the episode, and it was a very good episode. I was pleased with what we talked about, but I noticed right when we were wrapping up with the episode,
Yeah.
something was screwed up with our audio, and not like screwed up where we could just still release it. It was really bad. For some reason, I don't remember if it was you or me, but one of us sounded like we were coming through the headset of the other as opposed to it being a little bit more clear. So it sounded awful.
Yeah.
And it was unusable. It was just unusable. So we were going to revisit it, comparing it with the movie Valentine's Day, which is a film that you had suggested, Gorehound,
Yeah.
because it has a similar sort of thing with the multiple stories. And that kind of led me to give the idea, well, let's just talk about these films in a general sense, because there are a lot of them. They kind of range in styles, but it's a unique way to tell a movie. What are a couple of movies that fall underneath this hyperlink cinema?
Yeah. The ones that came to my mind fastest were Valentine's Day, Playing by the Heart, and New Year's Eve. Because Playing by the Heart, I felt like was the most solid example of an interconnected movie, because all of it does end in the same room, in the same scene.
True.
Whereas I don't think Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve really do that. They intersect quite a bit, but not into a perfect example.
Yeah. I feel that Playing by Heart was a movie that definitely employed this style. But I feel that once the movie Love Actually hit, what year was that? 2003, I think, maybe?
Yeah.
And when that movie hit in 2003, I felt that kind of opened up the floodgates to other similar films that had romantic comedies surrounding a particular holiday. Like you had New Year's Eve, you had Valentine's Day, there's only two holiday ones, I guess, but the other romantic comedies kind of did that. You had the movie He's Just Not That Into You. I don't know if you remember when that came out. Things like What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Yeah.
And they had this sort of, for a lot of romantic comedies, kind of blossomed in this style of film. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't seen He's he's just not into you. But
Neither have I, despite the fact that stars Anna Kendrick
and Justin Long.
I don't care about Justin Long.
You don't like Justin Long?
I have nothing against him. Everyone pales in comparison to Anna Kendrick.
Maybe I have seen it. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot. I mean, the ones that I had just mentioned are pretty much the most immediate ones that I've seen. Everything else I've either seen or just like not really paid attention. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Love Actually, I have strong feelings about that, regardless of it being this movie. And I'm not going to get into that. But yes, that is a perfect example of, or not a perfect, but a very good example of converging storylines.
Yeah. Other films go into this. I'm sorry.
As I was looking into this, some of the other ones I saw were not romantic comedies, but movies like Snatch, 21 Grams, or Babel, which I'm not really that familiar with. Have you seen either of those?
No, I want to. Is it Babel or Babel?
I don't know.
I don't know. It stars not Tom Cruise. It stars Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, yeah.
I remember seeing that this movie sounded pretty good when it was coming out, but I also saw that the movie was 143 minutes long, and I'm like, I don't have time for that, so I never saw it. But other films that kind of fall underneath this blanket include, but are not limited to, films like Go, Crash, which we talked about a little bit last week.
Yeah.
The film Closer, which is a really weird movie if you ever saw it, starring Clive Owen, Natalie Portman, Julia Roberts, and some other guy who I can't remember at the moment. Jude Law. Jude Law is also in it.
I've heard a lot about that.
It's a crazy movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it deserved all the recognition that it got thrown on it, but it's worth a watch. Yeah. But it's kind of a crazy movie there. Anyway, Pulp Fiction being another one. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. But...
Yeah, well, I had mentioned that, or I had thought of it. Is that really converging storylines?
I think so. It may not be converging the storylines the way you see it, but I think it falls underneath this bracket of composite films or hyperlink cinema, in the fact that you have a lot of parallel storylines. They all intersect with one another. They're kind of surrounding one particular topic or theme. I think it counts. I really do.
Okay.
One other thing about Pulp Fiction, I think the reason that film works is because of its unique story structure. Because the movie, it starts out with this weird conversation in the cafe. And then it flashes back to all these other stories that, while Bruce Willis's doesn't go to this point, but Sam Jackson and John Travolta eventually wind up in that cafe as well.
Right. And it's at that point where I find it has the best basis for it being this type of film. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if it didn't have that, I would be more inclined to not consider it and just say that everything exists in the same universe, just not connecting to each other.
Right. But the characters do intersect, they do interlock. Like, things that happen in one story do affect things that happen in another. So I think it kind of works in that regard. And yeah, I think it kind of opened up the floodgates to more of these types of films becoming more and more mainstream. Because before 1994, you really didn't see movies like that too often, unless they were like sort of art housey kind of films. But after that, those films started to blow up and got a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see the movie Magnolia with Tom Cruise?
No, I don't watch.
Don't.
It's a Tom Cruise movie, so I don't venture too closely.
It's not a good movie. I rented it one day when I was in college, and I was really excited because a friend of mine at the time was like, "This is such a great movie!" And so I sat down like, okay, I'll watch it. It has a good cast. I mean, it has Tom Cruise, has Philip Baker Hall, Philip Seymour Hoffman, William H. Macy, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly. Has a crazy good cast. Yeah. And I sit down, and 3 hours later, I'm like, what did I just watch? And the weirdest thing that happened, spoilers for a movie that's almost 20 years old. But the craziest thing that happens is at the end of the movie, frogs just start raining from the sky.
Like in the apocalypse?
Yeah,
Huh.
I don't. It got too like. Is this like a religious allegory or what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since I saw the movie, so I might be misremembering or not remembering all the details, but it was the craziest thing. Like, why did this just happen? What
Yeah.
is going on here? Why is what's happening? But on the other hand, the film Go
Yeah.
is amazing. You should check that out. Starring Taye Diggs, Breckin Meyer, and I guess Melissa McCarthy in her film debut. How about that? I did not realize that as I look at the Wikipedia entry. It's a great film. It's a comedy, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly recommend it.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it.
Back in our old version of this podcast, Zach and I did a podcast on this movie, and we both highly recommended it.
While doing some research for this, I did find two movies which I've never seen before, which I thought looked very interesting. One of them was called 1114. You
Okay.
heard of that one?
Mm-mm.
It just looked like this crazy movie with a few people, including Colin Hanks and Patrick Swayze. It was from 2003, but it's got, I don't know, I feel like all of these movies have like the same cover where it's just a whole bunch of people
They do.
with like some kind of line separating them and the title somewhere like around there. But yeah, that one looked really good, and I'm going to try to search it out. In New York, I Love You. That one just looked really good.
Oh wow! Look at this. I'm looking at all the different people that directed the film. I'm guessing they're just random stories that they just put together into a film.
Yeah, it looks so interesting, and I think I might have skipped past it when it originally had come out because it looked so similar to some other movies that I just didn't really care for, though. I've grown more fond of now. Yeah.
Besides some other ones, we had the movie Traffic from 2000, a very critically acclaimed film, which I don't know if it deserved necessarily, but it definitely was a film that took that style and used it to its advantage with looking at the drug trade in America
Yeah.
and from a variety of different perspectives. Some of the stories intersected, but not as much. Sometimes I think, if memory serves, just two characters happen to walk past one another, and that was the extent of it. Almost like a handoff between like story one to story two. But it was surrounded by the similar theme. Yeah, so there was that. Other popular examples, the movie Contagion, which came out a couple of years back, starring Matt Damon.
I really wanted to see that.
I hear my fiance's seen it. She tells me about it, like, because it's one of those films that something like this may never really truly happen, but they do it in such a realistic way where you really start thinking, maybe this could happen. We should really watch out.
I can't believe I never saw this because I was even working at the health department when this movie came out. I was like, oh my gosh. And I really wanted to work there for like a long time at that point, and I never got around to seeing it.
There have been other films that sort of do the similar style, but I don't think to the same extent. Like your disaster films, like when you had movies like The Towering Inferno, and I'm trying to think of something like The Poseidon Adventure, where a singular disaster happens and you follow these different groups of people to survive, and sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. But we've talked quite a bit about examples, so I'm thinking anyone who's listening probably knows what we're talking about or have an idea or have a favorite of theirs. Let me ask you this. Why do you think people like these films, or what do you think makes them work for audiences that they keep doing this type of style again and again?
Me personally, I think it's like a twist ending, where the reveal at the end how these people are all connected is just so cool, and it looks when actually I don't think I've really seen a movie like this where the end, if it did have a twist ending, it wasn't like awesome, like so cool and like, oh my gosh, that's related.
So
like
you like, so what you're saying is you think that people like to see how all these stories are connected,
Yeah.
and how that's revealed slowly throughout the movie.
Right. I think one of the best reveals was in New Year's Eve when Bradley Cooper was like he was talking with Julia Roberts the entire movie, and you're focusing on Julia Roberts, and at the end you realize his connection with the gay football player, and you're like, oh my gosh, such a like a I did not see that coming, but it was so cool.
I kind of think I think that's true. I think people do like, because it's like, it's a mystery, but not a mystery about how
Hmm.
these things kind of connect. I think
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, you can make the assumption that there's gonna be some twist ending, like
hmm
this is gonna be her sister, or they were dating at one point in time and were married, or something like that.
right. I think there's, to some extent, not in every one of these movies, but as they've gotten popular, you could have some big name stars in these films,
Yeah.
and it's an opportunity for people to see like all of these star-studded event. Like, take for example the movie Love Actually,
And it's not
where,
that big of an investment of time because
no, I mean it's a 2 hour movie. They're all doing little parts, but you get to see a lot of these characters.
hmm
Like for example, in Love Actually, you had Hugh Grant, Liam Neeson, Colin Firth, Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Keira Knightley. They're all more in England than here in the U.S., I would imagine, but they're all popular actors that people like, that they enjoy seeing, and they're all
hmm
together in one big movie, so you get to see them all at once.
yeah.
And I think there's something to that, that people, that sort of attract people to see these sorts of films. Like, what was it? Valentine's Day.
hmm Yeah, Valentine's Day had so many big name actors that anybody in the American audience is gonna like at least one of those characters.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, here's, I think, the U.S. version of Love Actually is Valentine's Day. You had Jessica Alba, Jessica Biel, two actresses, I always get their names confused with one another.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper,
Taylor
Patrick
Swift.
Dempsey, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, she is so good in it.
Taylor Swift before she really became huge.
Yeah,
Taylor Lautner,
yeah,
um, Julia Roberts, Topher Grace, Jamie Foxx. Yeah, these are some pretty big names that audiences like. They
yeah.
like these people, and so they're going to be like, "Oh, let's go see this movie with all these people in it, and it will be awesome and great and wonderful."
hmm
And so they go, and they, I think it's an opportunity to see all their favorite stars on the screen. So,
And the story, it's a very fast paced storyline for these because you have
mhm.
so many things going on. You're always moving around to a different story.
Right. And in some of these light, especially the romantic comedy ones, they're they're not too deep in terms of, like, who's that guy? How does that connect with this? Who's this?
Hmm
Some of the more political thriller ones, like Traffic, or what's the name of that film?
Syriana.
Syriana. Thank you. I can't pronounce words. 2005 Syriana, starring George Clooney. They those films, you need to pay, I think, a little bit more attention to follow everything that's going on, because they are kind of fast-paced movies. You can miss stuff quite easily, but a good director can really help you connect all these points.
Yeah.
The movie Crash, which we talked about, kind of does the same sort of thing. A lot of things going on, but the movie isn't overloaded with a lot of different stories, and so you could easily sort of see how all these are connected and
Yeah.
whatnot. What are some of the pros of these movies? We kind of talked a little bit about it, about how there's like a lot of stars and there's a twist in it. So what do you think some positives can come out of a film like this?
I mean, I'm not really sure that I like it a lot. I mean,
Take
I respect
that.
I respect it as a very good genre of film, but if I'm going to sit down on a Saturday night and watch a movie that's completely honed into me, I don't think I'm going to steer towards these. Because while I was doing my research, I was trying to find, horror themed, interconnected movies, and there just aren't a whole lot.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something I wanted to discuss with you.
Right. Because it's a completely separate type of movie, but anthology horror movies I found to be the closest thing to this,
Mm-hmm.
where they're not, they are pretty strictly isolated from each other. Movies like Tales from the Crypt or VHS, where like Tales of the Crypt, you pretty much have the same narrator throughout all of them.
Crypt Creeper.
He's great. He's great. In VHS, where you know essentially have the same narrator,
Mm-hmm.
same person pressing play. But Trick or Treat was pretty much the only horror movie that I could find that had plots that were happening in the same timeline universe. They didn't really connect, but it was the closest thing.
Mm.
And I don't think that there were any science fiction movies that I could find that were well known. Did you find any?
Nothing on just a quick look. So I do say I think the fantasy genre doesn't really have a lot of these films or have this style of film attached to it, which is a shame because I think that
I mean,
it could be done.
Maybe Memento, but that was already weird in itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it. It was definitely a non-linear film because the film was told backwards.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would fall underneath this.
No, but I think it's like the closest, sci-fi film that could perhaps be qualified underneath this.
Yeah, I don't even count Memento as a sci-fi film though.
It's that one's completely genre bending.
Well, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But yeah, there aren't a lot of films. I think that's an untapped resource. So we're going to go to Hollywood and we're going to make a horror film that is one of these composite hyperlink cinemas, and we're going to make a ton of money because no one else has done it before.
Yeah.
And we'll call it, I don't know, what could be the story? So a killer gets loose, obviously.
Maybe it's because horror movies are very predictable.
This is a way we can make it unpredictable.
How can you sell an unpredictable movie unless it's... You pretty much know, whenever you go into a horror movie, you know what you're getting yourself into. Whether it's going to be a ghost or killer, something like that.
I don't know. I haven't worked that one out, but we will.
Yeah.
So, what about some of the cons to these sorts of films?
Well, what I don't think you discussed the pros of these.
I think. Well, I guess my main thing is that, in essence, you get to see a lot of star-studded events. The stories, it's like seeing like 4 movies in one, because the stories, even though they sort of intersect, they're kind of individual on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, all right, four movies for the price of one, awesome. And I think that appeals to a lot of people too. I think it can be a pro to it. They tend to be light, fluffy, more the romantic comedy ones. I guess the drama ones are just like a drama movie, so I guess that I take back light, fluffy. But I think the people. Let me put that back. The lighter ones, like romantic comedies, they're light, fluffy. You don't need to think too hard. You could just enjoy it and have a smile on your face, feel good. The ones that are a little bit more serious, like your Crashes, your Traffics, those I think are more thinking films where you're like, they're having big ideas, and I'm going to think about this and see how I relate to it. So I think that has it going for them because people like those sort of quote unquote smart films, for lack of a better term. I think those are definitely pros in those films' favor. Having said that, I also think those could be cons as well. One of the problems I have with some of these films, and I had this a little bit with Love Actually, is that the movies can be overstuffed. They'll cram too many stories into the film where you're just like, I don't care about half of these. And I had that problem with Love Actually. I felt that the movie could have done away with the goofy guy who wants to go to America to meet women. Like, you could have cut that out. I wouldn't have missed it. The storyline about about the stunt the sex body doubles on the movie and how they're like really comfortable with each other when they're naked, but when they go on the date they're really
Oh,
awkward.
right.
I mean, I like Martin Freeman, but it's just kind of like this seems tacked on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that there's a lot of stuff happening. And yeah, for a romance or a rom-com, it works because it's not really getting too deep. It's just kind of make you feel good cry, whatever. Uh,
I just yeah, it just went on a little bit too long for me. They could have trimmed
right.
it
I
down.
mean, it's part of the reason I don't really like TV is it's really short paced. Where there's just you could probably make a TV episode about each of these.
Yeah, sometimes that's how it feels. Like they had ideas for like five different movies, but they couldn't stretch them out to normal movie length, so they just cobbled them together.
Right, and
It's
sometimes it's better for these to be just short movies, but you might be pushing the intersection of all of these. Oh, but yeah, I think one of the biggest, I don't know if it's a con about these, but the fact that it really only is dramas and rom-coms that really employ this. And I think it just says a little bit about the genre that it has it has a difficult time really breaking into well with the Gorehound follows, but that's just a personal opinion.
yeah, you see a lot of comedy in these films, but you don't actually see like a flat out ha 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 comedy. Like Love Actually, it's a rom com, which is different from just a straight up comedy. Um, Even like a Pulp Fiction, which had a lot of comedy in it, that's a crime drama at the end of the day. What about you? Do you find any cons in these sorts of films?
Besides the they tend to be a little bit shorter attention spans. That um, I don't know. It gets very personal because I'm like I could take it or leave it. I'd probably rather watch a Godzilla movie than
Maybe they'll make a
one.
Godzilla movie that's a composite film.
Yeah.
Be like, here's what happens when Godzilla does this, and then the other monsters will be doing this, and they'll all meet up at the end for a family reunion. I don't know.
Right. But
Hollywood, call me.
even if that happened, it would be predictable from the very beginning of the movie, so that it wouldn't really fall underneath these because in all of these movies, these true hyperlinked movies, we don't really know how they're connected. The end of the movie is completely up in the air, other than the fact that they're going to merge or run side by side.
Hmm.
If we were to see, you know, Godzilla in Cloverfield, we know exactly what's going to happen in the last 30 minutes of the movie.
Well, I think in any Godzilla movie, you know what's going to happen in the last 30 minutes of the movie. The monsters are going to
Right.
wail on one another.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, I do give it. I don't want to like rail on these movies because they are very well directed, and the impacts that they have can be awesome. You're like, I did not see that coming.
it's got to be tough to direct one of these films with all these mini stories running in parallel. I take that
Right.
back. It's either really easy or really hard. Easy in the sense that, you could just film with one actor at one time. Scheduling is probably really easy to do. Um,
Logistically, easy.
yeah, logistically easy, but like I probably in the writing and the composing of the film, that's got to be the tough part because you got to make sure all the pieces are working, and sometimes they
Hmm.
don't, and that can cause one of these films to fall apart.
Yeah.
Like if you just have like a random B story somewhere that has no connection with like the other three stories, then it's going to feel really awkward. Like, why is this here?
Would you consider this just came to my mind, but would you consider Rogue One an interlinked movie?
No, because it is on its own. It's part of a larger cinematic universe. Thank you very much, Marvel, for starting that. Um, but I wouldn't call it an interlinked movie because it's from what I can tell, the story is a straight up typical narrative A to B to C story like any other movie would be. It just
Hmm.
it happens to take place in the cinematic world of Star Wars.
Okay. So
Um,
how could they make Rogue One to be an interlinked movie that wasn't a rom-com?
uh, if they had, okay, so for those of you listening, we're recording that. Did you see the trailer?
No, oh, I forgot that it was actually on.
Yeah, they came out with the trailer today.
Yeah, I saw that it was released today. I was like, I am not watching this during work.
I did. I didn't care. Um, basically, do you want me to do you want to know? Do you know what's about it all? Rogue One.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I know what it's about, but
Okay, so I don't want to spoil.
yeah.
But the only thing
Yeah,
that
for the first time, I don't want you to spoil something for me.
okay, so from the preview you can get an idea of what the story is about,
Yeah.
what the goal of the movie is. Yeah, I think if you wanted to turn that into an interleaked movie, you could, because maybe there are multiple characters going after the same goal, but doing it in a different, their own way, and maybe doing like one part of it, and when all three separate stories finish up their part, the whole thing is, the whole goal that they're trying to get is maybe completed. I don't know.
Hmm. But
So,
it wouldn't work for this because they all start as a team.
well, not necessarily. It could. I think it can go either way. I think you could, with one of these films, I think you could start off with all the characters meeting at the first time, and then they split off into their own story. I think that would still count as an linked film, with just
Yeah.
three different plot
Yeah.
lines doing their own thing. Like, I compare it to, think of your average episode of Seinfeld, especially in the later years, where each character had their own individual storyline. Like Jerry was doing something, George was doing something, Elaine was doing something, Kramer was doing something, completely independent of what the other characters were doing.
That brings up a great point because I think a lot of Seinfeld episodes employed this.
Hmm. They did. They started that like by the third season or so, and it became a running thing for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And a lot of other sitcoms then sort of borrowed the idea, and but that's what we got going on today.
Yeah.
Or do you ever watch the TV show Modern Family?
Not too much. I'm familiar with it.
That show, even though the family they're all related to one another, many episodes deal with what the first family's doing, what the second family's doing, what the third family's doing.
Yeah, she watches Parenthood a lot,
Okay.
which I think would apply here.
So like there's an A, a B, and a C plot, and sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. But I would count that. But they usually share some sort of theme. It's not like just random stuff happening. So
Yeah.
that sort of falls in that hyperlink cinema style of storytelling.
Yeah.
There are ways you can do it. Well, I guess that answers our question. Have they made comedy? Maybe nothing as mainstream and big in a film, but definitely on TV they've done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it works well for TV because you already have a short attention span. It works.
You have like maybe a half hour, an hour to do this, and then, yeah. That's actually the whole A plot, B plot is a very common thing in a lot of different shows. Game of Thrones would be another one where you have like all these characters doing different things, and like half the time their stories don't intersect, but over time, different characters interact with different people.
Right. And maybe, minor intersections,
Uh-huh.
but they still are intersections regardless.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is a perfect example of this
Yeah,
sort of thing.
How did we miss these things in the initial research?
Well, I guess because we were looking at it from the film perspective, not so much from the TV perspective.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, I think we covered quite a bit here tonight.
Yeah.
Do you got any final thoughts on anything?
Final thoughts to wrap it all up.
Mm-hmm.
No. How about yourself?
That was totally anticlimactic.
I was thinking, but really, I'm gonna keep on watching them. I wish that there were some that were like horror themed, like straight up, like uh, like a Halloween that what didn't involve Jason. Or actually,
Whoa, I can't believe you just did that. You said a Halloween without Jason?
oh yeah, I'm
Halloween
not.
has Michael Myers, man.
I'm sorry.
You have
Um,
failed as the Gorehound. We
I've
need
never liked Michael Myers all that much. Not in defense of what I just did, but
still.
in what was it? Halloween 2 or 3 is when they started to remove
Yeah, they wanted to make
Jason.
it Michael Myers. Stop saying that.
I'm sorry.
You are supposed to be the horror guru, man. But yeah, they were trying to phase him
right.
out.
Try to
And,
get into the original of why they were making Halloween was
like,
supposed to be this anthology. It wasn't all supposed to be about Michael Myers. It was
right.
supposed to be about like a different story. So that like Halloween 2 would just be like a
Season of the Witch.
yeah. I don't remember it that well, but I believe that it had like 3 separate stories.
I think Halloween 3 had one main plot line, and then about these Halloween masks that they're trying to get children to buy, and it ate their brains or
Yeah.
something stupid. But yeah, it wasn't very successful, which is why they went back to Michael Myers.
Well, let's go back to your thoughts before final thoughts before I, lose all credibility.
I don't really have any. I think we covered it all.
It's been a great podcast, and
Excellent podcast.
Until next week, we are the All New Culture Cast.
Bye, everyone. You've been listening to the All New Culture Cast, where every episode is all new. Check out our blog, Zach and Nick's Culturecast, at znculturecast.wordpress.com, and find us on social media. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Theme music by bensound.com. The All New Culturecast, a saltwater production, copyright 2016.
Okay. I'll bring us in and take us out.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the all new
Fail.